Hi, if you're new here, my name is Becca. I'm a writer. I'm currently working on what I hope will be my debut upmarket fiction novel. It is a 90s East Coast autumn ghost story going by the name of Glass Paradise and/or Project Eden. And welcome to FaceTime with Becca. Whether you're new here or not, this is a brand new segment for my channel. I hesitate to call it a podcast because I don't actually think it's a podcast. It's really just me chatting about writing or writing adjacent things that I've seen either in my comment section, in the writing community, or things that my friends and I have just been chatting about. So today's first episode is going to be all about writing community. I asked you guys over on my Instagram which topic of the three that I had in mind you wanted to see first, and this is what everyone chose. So if you want to be in the know about what other videos I have coming up, definitely consider following me over on Instagram. So before we jump into today's topic, I thought it would be fun to, at the beginning of every episode, go through something that I like to call media that motivates. And this is basically a little section where I'm going to tell you guys all about the books, movies, TV shows, music, video games, and talk a little bit about how that's been motivating me creatively or personally or professionally. The first thing I want to talk about is Superman. I went to go watch that movie with my husband, I think the day it came out, and was fundamentally transformed. If you've seen any of the discourse online regarding this movie, you'll know that there are some people that think it's too woke or that he's weak and blah, 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 blah. He's just nice. He's just a return to the Superman that we all know and love from the Justice League Unlimited TV show, from the comics, and I think David Cornsweet does such an incredible job of portraying a version of Superman that is aspirational, that is both strong but also incredibly human. And I think for me, as I'm looking towards my next project, which I will have it linked up here, I did a video talking about brainstorming my next book idea, which is this very gritty magical girl duology. It was just such a huge source of inspiration in terms of how I want to go about crafting my heroes and the things that they sort of struggle with. It really was an incredible movie. Everyone was so spectacular. Mr. Terrific stole the show. So if you haven't watched that movie, I highly recommend. Keeping in line with the Project Blue inspiration, I recently discovered through a TikTok ad, actually, this group called After, and they make this really awesome, like, late 90s, early 2000s, new agey synth pop, like the kind of music that you would expect in like a teen coming of age movie from that age. And I've been obsessed. It's been on repeat. It's a huge source of inspiration as well for Project Blue. So I've just been organically looking for places to get inspiration for this story. I still have no plot. It's just vibes. I really recommend their music. They're fantastic. Everyone go check it out and let me know what you think. The last piece of media that I want to talk about is actually the Plot Twist podcast with Victoria Aveyard and Soman Chainani. I'm hoping I pronounced his last name correctly. I am not a huge podcast person, but I adore Victoria. I am a really big fan of the Realmbreaker series. I recommend that series to everyone because I think it's just such a good entry point to fantasy. It's got incredible world building, romance, solid characters. I just think Victoria is such a talent when it comes to fantasy. And Soman's work I have never read, but the podcast is inspiring me to pick up The School for Good and Evil. But I really enjoy the podcast, not only because they don't focus so much on writing craft, but they do talk a lot about things that are going on in publishing that maybe not a lot of other people are talking about. I follow Victoria on a lot of socials, so I see her rightfully validated rants about AI and what it means when we start publishing fan fiction. As someone that is preparing to one day hopefully embark on a traditionally published author journey, there's a lot of really great conversations going on between her and Soman about, how are authors treated in that space? What does that look like? What does a career in this field look like? It's just a great peek behind the curtain at the world of publishing. And if that's something that interests you, I highly recommend. And even if you're not interested in trad pub, I think it's a really great conversation about just writing and being a writer in the digital age and in the online space. So I think you would really like it if you checked it out. Okay. Moving on to the meat and potatoes of this video. I have spent the last year and a half on YouTube making videos fairly consistently. And for me, when I started, honestly, just posting online in general, my goal has always been community. I grew up, I had a core group of like 4 friends, but even then I never felt particularly close with anyone except one, and even that one, we don't talk anymore. So community has always felt really out of reach for me. I've made friends wherever I've gone, but it's been kind of hard to hold on to them. People have moved away, people have started new jobs, interests change. And I think that's just the nature of life. Number one, I've been good at building community since I graduated high school. I've been good at finding people I vibe with, finding people that genuinely care for me, but it has been transient. And that I think has been the biggest hurdle that I have faced when it comes to keeping a group of people around me that's like solid and stable. So what I'm hoping this episode accomplishes is I want to invite all of you in the comment section to share not only your tips, but some of the struggles that you might have faced in creating your community. I want to open up a dialogue about some of the nuance that comes along with engaging other people, not only online, but in person as well. And I also want to share a lot about my experience building my writing community, how I've built this solid group of individuals that I feel comfortable not only talking to about my woes as a writer or what's going on in publishing or in writing spaces, but my writing as well, because I don't think people really grasp how vulnerable that can be and how much trust that actually takes, because I have heard horror stories of people sharing their writing and it getting stolen, or, you know, people don't know proper like feedback critique. And I want to share a little bit how community has been great, not only but for my project, but like for me as well. And there's 3 ways that I kind of want to tackle this topic. The first is by exploring the question of what defines community, why is it important, and how do I build it, both virtually and in person. So let's start with the first question, which is what defines writing community? I think this is the question that you have to ask yourself when you're deciding, okay, I'm a writer, I want to make this a regular practice in my life. I know that I don't want to do this alone. Writing can feel very solitary, so I want to build a community. But I think it's really important to ask yourselves what that means, because community can mean a lot of different things to different people and different audiences. Do you want accountability? Do you want camaraderie? Do you want to combat the echo chamber that is the mind of a writer that's constantly telling you it's not good enough? And it can be all 3. And I think it's important to also ask yourself, what kind of person are you? Like, are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? What kind of support are you looking for? Do you need a lot? Do you need a little? I think sometimes we tend to, as humans, get so excited and we jump into things without really thinking through what experience not only we're gonna get out of it, but what kind of experience are we going to give other people? Because here's the thing, we are so self-centered as human beings that sometimes we don't think about the energy that we're bringing. I mean, anxious people think about the energy that they bring, which is a very nervous, anxious energy all the time. But, you know, putting that aside, you also have to think about the kind of person and contributor that you're being in a community, the kind of conversations that you're helping other people navigate. We think so much about what things mean to us, and we don't always take into account the way that we come across and the way that we're engaging with other people, because that matters in how you steward and cultivate and create and invite more people into a community. You have to be willing to put out an energy that is receptive to other people. I think when it came to me and my personal journey of defining what writing community meant for me, I wanted people that I could be vulnerable about the difficulties of writing, specifically something as long and time intensive as writing a book. Because you don't have to write a book to be a writer. You can write short stories, you can write poetry, film and entertainment, you can write scripts. For me, I knew that writing a book was going to be a slog. No matter how much I enjoyed it, there were just going to be parts of it that were going to be hard and that I wasn't going to know how to navigate. So I wanted to have a good group of people where I could be vulnerable with and not feel like I'm complaining so much as getting the bad thoughts out so that I could continue and have the confidence to move forward with my project. I also knew that I wanted to have individuals close by where I could share my work, and I didn't want people just praising me for the sake of praising me and giving me confidence to move on. I wanted people that were going to genuinely be able to call out like, hey, like this fell a little flat. This story arc doesn't really make sense. This doesn't wrap up in a good way. I haven't shared my book in full with anybody just yet. I'm hoping to do that after I finish draft 3 fingers crossed in September. But I can say that of the work that I have shared with people, not only have they been incredibly kind about the quality of work and the way that I've been progressing as a writer, but the feedback that they've given the story has also been incredibly constructive, and it's always done with a lot of love. And there's also just like a genuine interest in seeing me succeed and also seeing the story succeed. I'm also bringing that energy to spaces. I am so excited to read my friends' work. I treat it with like a lot of respect and a lot of reverence, because no matter how much you share your work, I think, yes, you get more confident and you kind of learn to pick and choose what feedback you want to take and what you want to leave behind. But to be trusted with someone's work is really important to me, and I always treat that really respectfully, which goes back to what I was saying earlier of like, you need to think about the kind of energy that you're bringing into a community and the kind of like person that you want to be. People notice everything. We are in an age where we are so hyper aware of how people breathe, but I'm always cognizant that someone can take anything out of context, and think it's important to hold yourself accountable if something's wrong, or if you hurt someone's feelings with like critique or something like that. Like, you need to be able to take feedback for that as well, to grow and be a better individual in the kind of community that you're building. I think that the other really important thing to remember when it comes to community is that there's different types of community for different writers. Academic writers, there's writers for the content space, writers just like us that are writing books. And so there's different sort of, I don't want to say niche, because niches doesn't feel like the right word, but there's different little camps. I think that's beautiful. I think writing is everyone says it's such a solitary act, and when you're really in the nitty gritty of it, it is. But there's also like a lot of connective tissue there. I think there's also a lot of frustrations that transcend the different types of writing projects that we have. If there's one thing that I would really recommend, you should include people from different backgrounds, different genres, different areas of interest if you can. Sometimes if you get to a group where you feel comfortable sharing your work and you feel comfortable engaging with them and you feel like you've found good people and it's time for you to share your work, it's good to share it with people that maybe aren't so plugged into the kind of writing that you do. Maybe you're a thriller writer and you want to share your book with someone that reads predominantly rom-coms, because if it can appeal to them, then maybe you've got a good story going on it and it transcends readership. As I get older, I'm realizing that there's so many questions that you need to ask yourself, not in a paralytic sort of way, but just in like a thoughtful sort of way of like, how do I want to approach writing? What kind of writer do I want to be? What kind of feedback am I looking for? Because there's a lot of power in being able to identify that, asking those questions and having those answers, even if they change over time, I think is going to be really, really helpful in finding your own voice in the writing space. And eventually, if for whatever reason your writing does become public, you publish it, either trad or indie or on a Substack or something like that, when the critique comes in, you know what pieces to take and what to leave behind. And your confidence as an author is not shaken because you wanted everybody to love it and you thought everybody would, and now you're facing some critique and you don't know what to do. When it comes to defining writing community, you need to think about what you want that community to mean to you, how you want to show up in that community, what kind of support you need from them, how you plan to support them. When you think about those questions and you think about how you're defining your writing community, it will help you identify when the right individuals come along. And community can be one other person. You do not need a large group of people to be community. Sometimes all you need is one or two really good friends that have your best interests at heart, that know how to give good feedback, and that's it. So why is writing community important, right? My writing community has given me perspective, not only on my work, but on me and my mentality surrounding my work. I think also how I've moved in my personal life as well. When you inevitably, because it is inevitable, get to a point in your writing journey where you are really doubting everything. Every word you put on the page is garbage. Scenes, trash. Interiority, poo-poo. Characterization, who is she? Like, when you get to the point where you're really just like, what the am I doing? That is when your community, if you've built a good one, if you've taken those earlier questions into consideration, is going to help pick you back up. Is going to help give you the perspective like, hey, send me over your pages. Let's take a look at it together. Because I think the thing is that writing is so mentally taxing. And a lot of us are fitting it in before work, after work, on our lunch breaks, at the airport. We are finding time, pockets of time in very busy days and lives to be able to do this because we love it. And when you love something so much, you care about how it's perceived. You care about how good it is. And it's very hard to see through the forest. It's very hard to see the trees through the forest. I think that's the saying. I know for me, being able to hand my pages off to my friends and be like, what is this? What is going on? Is what I'm trying to communicate being conveyed? Even if it's not perfect, like, are the nuggets there? Community is so good for fighting the echo chamber that exists in our brains all the time, telling us that we're not good. Eventually, you do need to learn to take some of that feedback and learn to stand on your own feet and combat that voice on your own. Because the truth is, especially if you're building a writing community online or even in person, people have their own lives, and as much as they want to be there for you and give you reassurance, sometimes they just can't. So it's like, yes, the writing community is there to give you feedback and support and confidence when you need it, but you also need to learn to take that feedback and confidence and support and keep it close to your chest so that when you're writing at 2 a.m. and it all usually when I write at 2 a.m, everything feels like it's fire. And then I read it in the morning and it's not that great. But you need to be able to hold that confidence close, because there's just going to be so much outside noise from readers, editors, if you decide to get editors for your indie projects or for TradPub, critics. Everyone is going to have something to say about something. People might love a line that you wrote. People might hate it. Something's divisive. There's just going to be so much noise. And at the end of the day, your projects, at least for me, and this is why, again, it's important to ask yourself these questions of like, what kind of writer you want to be. At the end of the day, if I'm proud of the project, and if I can allow myself to be proud of the project and what I've said and the journey that I've taken my characters on, that is enough for me. Now, if there's valid criticisms about prose or craft or things that do resonate, again, that's when you can take things that you do identify with and be like, oh yeah, you know what? For my next project, I am going to keep that kind of feedback in mind and let the rest of it go. Writers are such sensitive creatures by nature, and it's really, really important to keep that sensitivity, but also have some confidence in your ability to do things. And I think that's why having a community is that launching off point, and why it's so important to have, especially as newer, younger writers learning their way through a marathon project like a book or any sort of writing. All right, now let's actually talk about building your community, whether that is virtually or in person. The most important thing you have to do is engage. I don't care if you're doing that online or if you're doing that in person. And that is really, really scary for a lot of writers because, as I said, we are sensitive, solitary creatures for the most part. I do think as a creator, it is a lot easier. As a creator, I'm putting myself out there. I'm putting my story out there. I'm putting my personality and myself out there, creating a little pocket of energy on the internet for people to come find me. Other creators have an easier time connecting with other creators because we're seeing each other. We're getting the vibe. We're sussing it out. We're engaging in the comments section for a couple of videos before we move it over to an Instagram DM, to possibly hosting a live stream together, to then just creating a genuine friendship. But that doesn't happen without engagement. And when it comes to building community in person, you also have to engage. I posted, I think, a vlog 2 videos back where I went writing with my coworker who also loves to write comedy. And people were like, that is so cool. Like, I wish I could do that. I would not have been able to do that if I did not put myself out there and tell my team that I was writing a book and that I did content creation, which was harrowing. Let me tell you that. That was harrowing. It was amazing. It was so worth it because I never would have had this not only great relationship with my coworker now outside of writing and like content, but now I have someone in my life that I go with on a monthly basis almost to go write together. We explore new places in the city. We get lunch together. We like gab, and I cannot tell you how invaluable that is. And it was so worth the 2 seconds of fear that I had in telling people that like these were my hobbies. I think that level of engagement when it comes to engaging people in real life is also important. I also want to flag that Brielle also put together a video a couple months ago talking about building writing community IRL and how she kind of developed this in-person writing group in her area. And it's something that has stuck with me. I haven't been able to do it because I've actually built up such an incredible online writing community that I actually don't have time to go and build an even bigger one in person. I talked to my local coffee shop. I was like, hey, if I want to put up a flyer, like asking people if they want to come to like this writing group once a month here, like would I be able to do that? And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. If you want community, you have to be willing to go out and get it. Like you have to be willing to go out and find it, seek it out. It is not just going to come to you, unfortunately. I feel like that's very rare. And that's not to say that you're not trying. And sometimes you're trying for so long and something just is not clicking. I know that sucks. I think it's really hard when you see other people building community so quickly. Some things just take longer for people. And that's totally fine. I really rebuke this idea. Also, I've been loving the word rebuke. I love the word rebuke. I rebuke the idea that we are all in competition with each other. I rebuke the idea that we are all on some sort of timeline and that people are further ahead than... Knock it off. That's not the case. Back to my original point. As a creator, sometimes it's a little easier because I am putting myself out there. I'm also adding another layer of work because while I love filming and editing and doing content creation, that is also a massive time suck. And I don't think everyone needs to do content. Hot take. I really don't think everybody needs to do content. So this is not me advocating for you to start an AuthorTube channel unless you want to. I love finding new AuthorTube channels. Yeah, sometimes you just need a little community in person and you need to be willing to figure out how to go about doing that. There's so much power in being the catalyst and taking the ownership of something. I think that's why I love so much like social media, because I've been able to grow this account myself, organically teaching myself video editing and not a ton on the content analytics side of things, because that's really scary and I will spiral. I have been able to build a community online in my comment section with my AuthorTube friends. Like there's a lot of reflection that comes with taking nothing and making something out of it, which is why I love content creation, but not everybody wants to do that with content creation. Sometimes it's the book and the writing process. That is what they are nurturing and creating, right? I have written now so many drafts, 2 different books. That is also a source of great like confidence and like a great example as well of taking nothing and making it exist and nurturing it and making it better and better and better. The other thing that I think that you need to think about when you're building your community is etiquette. And I've kind of touched on this a little bit in some of the other sections where I've been talking, but this might be a really hot take. People don't owe you their time. And people don't owe you a response. It's polite to respond. It's polite to acknowledge when someone has reached out to you. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of people are busy. And I will once again reiterate that when it comes to building a community of people online, we don't know each other. You don't know me based off a 30-minute video that I post every week. I don't know you based off a comment. That's why community takes time. That's why, as I mentioned earlier, like that engagement piece is really important, because you begin the process of getting to know someone offline or in person, right? Like you don't know someone. Very rarely do you meet someone for a cup of coffee and know everything about them. You will with me, because I dump everything in a first meeting. If you've had a one-on-one with me, I feel like you know. There's a certain level of etiquette that you need to have when you're building a community when it comes to the outreach that you're doing. And then if you get comfortable, once it comes to the beta reading and feedback portions, if you have someone that's asking that of you. That's why I always ask individuals, like, if they're asking me to read something, like, what kind of feedback are you looking for? Where do you not feel confident? Where can I help? There's a certain level of professionalism that's needed when you're having these conversations with people. There's a certain level of professionalism and a certain level of removing the parasocial aspect of what content creation does, or just engaging in online spaces, period. You don't even have to make content, but I think there's this belief that people need to be accessible 24/7. And I I rebuke that. And you need to be professional and not take things personally. If someone says, you know what, no, I don't have the time, or I'm not really interested in that right now, like, you need to not be able to take things personally. Coming from someone who takes almost everything personally, I've really tried to do a lot of work in that department and understand that people just have varying degrees of what they're able to put out emotionally and time. Like, it takes time, like taking an hour out of your day to meet with someone, and sometimes they really want to, but they really just can't. So as you go on your journey, some people you won't vibe with, and that's okay. Not everyone is meant to get along. Not everyone is meant to be best friends. You're not meant to connect with everyone, but it does make the people that you do connect with that much more important. I think I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that building community right now feels really weird. I grew up in an age where there were a lot of forums. Like, I felt like people could go on like a live journal, or God, what other forum sites did I use? Gaia Online was it an MMORPG with forums? There were so many forums online growing up because social media was like not a thing, but that's how people connected. And it was a lot more like closed and private, even though like some forums would have like thousands of people in it. But it feels like nowadays the way to do it, the only way to do it, is to do everything so publicly. Like, everybody has a social media, everybody's trying to create content and do a side hustle and monetize, and it is very daunting. I want to talk about this in another video, but I think it contributes to that idea of like cringe culture and being perceived as trying. Everything we do has to be so public now in order to make friends, in order to put our work out there. It's just, it can feel really overwhelming. And I know that for a lot of people that deal with social anxiety even worse than I do, the idea of any of that is just like, get me out of here. I'm saying all of this that I have said in today's video with a grain of salt, that I recognize that it's really hard. I've been there. I started last year. It was really hard for me. You know how embarrassed I felt as like a 30-year-old unemployed woman starting her journey with writing in earnest publicly? I thought I was too old. I thought am I too old to be here? That's exactly how I felt. And I'm so blessed that the community that I found is either my age, if not a touch younger, a scotch younger, but I don't feel weird about it. And I don't think they feel weird about me being in this space. And I think, like, I don't want to say the biggest critic we have is ourselves, because when you're throwing yourself into a public arena, everyone's a critic. But I long for the days where you could just go to a forum and talk to people, and there's a certain sense of anonymity. Like, you didn't have to post your face. You didn't know who anyone was. So that was also a little scary. But the landscape of how we are connecting and how we are presenting ourselves and how we go about finding friends is changing, and it's really difficult. And I think it's getting harder and harder to meet people in real life and meet people organically, because everyone is so anxious and social and sometimes a little mean. But as I get older and as I kind of become really introspective about like the world around me, I also realize that it's hard, but we're more equipped to handle it than we think we are, which I had a point here that's like, you know, accessibility is not always a plus. Like, that idea of always having to put yourself online or put yourself out there to be worth anything. I feel like indie authors feel it the most, right? There's all this pressure to, okay, you not only have to write the book and make sure it's good and make sure it's like double good, because people have disproportionate levels of standards for indie authors versus traditionally published authors. We also have to market it. We have to, if we don't have the money for a cover designer, design covers ourselves. We then have to have a social media presence and blah, 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 blah. Victoria and Soman talked about this in last week's plot twist episode, where it's like, people expect a certain level of accessibility and almost ownership over authors that doesn't feel entirely fair. That just because someone buys your product or supports you, they think they have a sense of ownership over you. And I'm saying all of this in terms of writing community, because the further you get into something, the more you learn about something, the more ingrained you become in something, the more you learn about writing community and like authors and books and stuff like that. It feels a little harrowing. I'm not gonna lie. I constantly think about what it would be like to start entering like the trad pub space. And I'm constantly thinking less so of my peers, which we're gonna talk about in a second, and more so the level of accessibility that people are gonna expect of me. And I also think about the level of accessibility that I present to the writing community that I currently have. Because sometimes it's real easy to get sucked up in that. And I'm like, I am a wife, I have a home to take care of, I have a husband that needs my love and attention, and I love and want to give him all of that. So it's also like you need to learn where to draw your boundaries with things. And when I say your peers and your writing community, this is why I also think that a certain level of professionalism is really important, because you never know who your peers are going to be. Obviously, you cannot vibe with someone and just check out and be like, you know what, the relationship there didn't work out, that's totally fine, we move on. But like, people talk. And this is not coming from like any personal experience or drama that I've experienced in the author tube space. Everyone has been lovely that I know. But like, I think about all the time, like potentially we are all going to be not just friends, but like co-workers in the future if a lot of us do get to publish our work. I think it's important to keep that in the back of your mind that like, yes, these people are your friends, but these are also co-workers, and you want to have good rapport with people, even with the individuals that maybe you weren't able to build solid connections with. I think it's just good practice and good nature. And I think if I had to sum up this entire conversation, there's two things that I would want you to take away. Number one is to put yourself out there in a way that feels doable. Maybe you are not up for going to your local coffee shop and asking to put up a flyer to build a writing community in your hometown, but maybe you're willing to start chatting with someone in the comment section or maybe slide someone a DM, be like, hey, I think we'd get along really great. Like, I'd love to build a rapport, and also learn not to take no personally. I think the other thing that I would want to reiterate too is that, you know, these things take time. Most solid connections are not built in a day, and it takes people time to like trust and to open up. I think you should be okay with cultivating something that's going to be stronger over time and something that's going to last over something that's immediate. But this is your time to be picky. You can be kind, but also be discerning and be choosy and be picky. And, you know, these are the people that you are probably going to hold close to you as you go through the roller coaster highs and lows of writing and publishing, whether trad or indie, because both have so many highs and lows. But always think about the way that you are presenting yourself and the kind of person that you want to be in those writer spaces. Think about the energy that you are putting out there to attract people into your community. Okay, I think we've reached the end of the video, and I just want to go ahead and wrap this up by saying that writing community for me has deeply impacted the way that I am able to do difficult things. Writing and AuthorTube has proven to me that I am able to do hard things. I'm able to do things that take time. I am able to have the discipline to build something that matters, to write something that matters to me, to have the vulnerability to dive into topics that terrify me on the page because of how much of myself I'm putting out there. I think it's also taught me, just like in my personal life, how to engage with other people in a way that's meaningful, in a way that's, for the first time in my life, building connections that I think are going to be so incredibly solid and will transcend time this time around. I think also some things just come with age. I say, as a 31-year-old, I still feel like a child sometimes. A few housekeeping items while I outro this video. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That really helps push my content out into the algorithm so we can continue building this community here on the channel. You can follow me on Substack. It's in the margins. I always have it linked in the description box down below. Haven't updated it in a bit because revisions have been keeping me busy, but I am hoping to come back to it in a really meaningful way soon. I have a Ko-fi. This is brand new. It is linked also in the description down below. So if you want to send me a little virtual coffee, support the channel, it is going to be linked in the description box of my videos moving forward. Absolutely no pressure though. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I have an Instagram. It's Becca Tobar Writes. Feel free to follow me over there. You get a behind the scenes of me crashing out over revisions, and also you get to vote on video ideas. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, leave whatever emoji you want. I hope this was helpful in some way, shape, and or form. But until the next time, I am rooting for you. Bye.